Hey everyone, this is Peter Chawaga from Bitcoin Magazine. I am joined here by Rodolfo Novak, aka NVK. He's behind Coinkite, the Bitcoin hardware wallet producer. Rodolfo, thanks so much for joining me today. How's it going?
Thanks for having me. I'm good. Good.
Doing good, good. So I wanted to call you on today to discuss BitcoinTreasuries.org with you. So this is a project you've spun up to be kind of a repository of the publicly traded companies that are moving their treasury assets into Bitcoin. Tell me about this project and what kind of inspires you to produce this website and start working on it.
FOMO, really. It's a lot of fun. I kind of I feel like it was. I always assumed that there was a place where you could just sort of see, like not necessarily a complete list, but just some list of large holders of Bitcoin that are not private entities, right? Especially with public traded companies because they already have all their books public anyways, right? And it's all audited and stuff. So I couldn't find anything. So and I'm a lover of buying domains, and so uh, so I just sort of started putting it together in the hopes that you would create more FOMO for other companies. It's everything is good for Bitcoin.
For sure. So is this tied directly at all to your work from Coinkite? I know that, the URL might be sponsored in some way by just Coinkite's provided this domain, but are the two connected at all? Is this more like a pet project just because of that FOMO you wanted to produce?
So we are Bitcoin hardware wallet. We make security hardware, right? And we've done custody for companies before. It's not something we offer anymore, and we were sort of part of this space for Jesus over 10 years now. And we've seen a lot of these companies come and go, and some of them sort of come to be what they are now. And we also run our treasuries in Bitcoin. It's not public, and we figured, hey, we do this to ourselves. We know people who do this. It's just natural to sort of want to list them.
Definitely. So it's been a growing trend, and one of the reasons I wanted to have this convo with you is to get your sense of why publicly traded companies seem to now be taking this time to allocate some of their treasury to Bitcoin. I think MicroStrategy grabs a lot of attention. Square, which is already associated with this space, but they kind of made some waves with their news to allocate some of their treasury over to Bitcoin. What's your sense of like why now? Why is this trend kind of forming before us?
I think it's so corporate governance, right? Especially for public traded companies, moves at a snail pace, right? It's very glacial because if they do something that's not kosher, they're screwed, right? And they're also screwed in public. You can't just sweep under the rug, right? Um, so there had to be some mechanisms in place, sort of like a template of how to go about this, right? And that took years to make. And Bitcoin goes up, Bitcoin goes down, and if you haven't been in this space for for a decade, it's hard for you to sort of understand that after Bitcoin goes down, it goes up again. Number go up. Uh, and I think was interesting because the the MicroStrategy and the Twitter thing were not they were not coordinated, right? It was kind of funny how they happened about the same time. Um, you know, I know Jack has been into Bitcoin for some time, and they so much so that they built Square Crypto, right, to do the crypto part of Square, and they're a monster, right? I mean, it's kind of surprising. It's like an $80 billion company, um, and uh, and then MicroStrategy was I think a very interesting case because that was sort of like the true ultimate case scenario here, right? Like, this is not a Bitcoin company. This is not like, this is simply a company that does something else, who saw and understood Bitcoin from the sort of like the maximalist perspective, right? You have this store of value, everything serves of the pleasure of store of value, and you know, you hold it because you want to still be above water in 30 years from now. I think that was beautiful to see, and I think that's why everybody was so excited about it, because it was nice to see somebody coming from the other side and coming to that conclusion by themselves, right? This is not somebody who slowly accumulated in public, or sort of partook in the Bitcoin community, or any of that stuff, right? It's just like, hey, I have cash in the bank, it's going to shit, I need to find a solution, and you know, gold pet rocks are not the solution, right? I think that was beautiful to see.
Yeah, definitely. So if you go to bitcointreasuries.org and you look at the grand total, these companies are, you know, eating up a surprisingly large proportion of all the Bitcoin that will ever be out there. That being said, what do you think this trend of larger companies scooping up relatively large amounts of BTC means for the more retail, sat stacking type of investor?
Everything is good for Bitcoin, right? Uh, so what happens is Bitcoin scarcity comes from people buying it, right? And you have a limit cap supply on it. So you know, the more this behemoths buy it, like the price goes up for everybody else, right? It's just, there's no other way of looking about this, right? And what another interesting fact here is, just like the 2x attempt fork, or you know, UASF original, um, you know, economic relevant nodes in different sort of in separated sort of in like in separated parts of the internet, right? Will always have a lot of power, and you want your enemies to have Bitcoin, right? You want your competitors to have Bitcoin. You want everybody to have Bitcoin, because the more types of people with different sets of preferences, different sets of incentives, right, have it, the more secure the network is. Not just because of mining, right? If Kim Jong Un has Bitcoin, and the US has Bitcoin, and China has Bitcoin, right? It's in everybody's interest not to make any change to Bitcoin, right? Because if one wants a change that's beneficial to them, the other ones are going to want that change too. So it's beautiful sets of incentives.
Definitely. Everything is great for Bitcoin. So, you know, already since it launched, Bitcoin Treasuries has had some new companies it can add, and it looks like some more data sets have been added. If you had to guess, what do you think bitcointreasuries.org might look like at this time next year, or maybe even in 10 years? Is it going to be this super long list of companies that have kind of like FOMOed into Bitcoin?
So, I mean, it makes me very optimist. So let's put it this way: in 10 years, this website won't exist anymore, because every single public
It'll,
traded company that has treasury management, right, in sort of in assets that are not just dollar, they will have some exposure to Bitcoin. That will be either via ETFs, or holding themselves, or hey, listen, MicroStrategy is a Bitcoin ETF now, right? I mean, just buy MicroStrategy. You know, those guys are like 29% of their market cap is Bitcoin, right? So I think that's what's going to end up happening. It's either going to be accidental, because stocks you already own are going to be Bitcoin holders, right? Or you're just going to see other products coming about. But I doubt this website will exist in 10 years. It won't be neat.
Right. It'll just be a list of every publicly traded company in the world. So, you know, I think that BitcoinTreasuries.org in its stage right now is just a listing, obviously, of publicly traded companies that have allocated their treasury to Bitcoin, and how much Bitcoin that is. But one other thing that's coming out with this trend that I've noticed is some of the companies, Square and MicroStrategy for sure, which we've talked about, are also releasing content and explanations about how they've bought Bitcoin. Is that a part of the trend that you're interested in, that you're paying attention to at all?
So this is why the Square the Square announcement was almost more important than the MicroStrategy announcement. If anything, they're sort of complementary. So what Square did, they have a tiny amount of Bitcoin held, right? $50 million. It's interesting because of the size they are in the white paper that they created, right? So they created a template of how other public traded companies in the US can just sort of follow and be regulatorily compliant, right, to get this done. So now you just go to your board, you show that paper, you go to your legal, you show that paper, right? Compliance, show that paper, done, right? You just make the transfer and buy the Bitcoin. Now, and then the MicroStrategy case is just interesting because it's such a large part of the treasury, right? It gives a lot of confidence, right? That even if Bitcoin goes down a little bit, it's not a big deal, right? A lot of people may think that say Bitcoin goes down, say we have a bull run, right? And then it crashes like it always does, right? So we're gonna have a beautiful dip, and who knows? They might even go into red again, right? They don't have to actually sell the BTC, right? Even if they need their treasuries, right? They can just borrow against it. And there is no better time to borrow against Bitcoin than when you are in a low, because you're not going to have issues with being margin called or anything like that on your Bitcoin backed loan, right? It's such the timing could not be better.
Right. Definitely. And all the context that Square's provided, I think might just be extra material that gets other companies to see kind of what you say, that Bitcoin is a financial instrument that can help them in ways that, other savings and treasury technologies just can't.
Well, especially if they're holding it themselves, right? Remember, now they have an instrument, right, that they can just send somewhere else, right? Let's say US decides to go like it goes to shit, right? Like completely fucked, right? They could just send this BTC out, right? They don't need permission, right? To send it out. They can send a third of their treasury, right? That's it. Just boom, sent.
It's pretty amazing. So Rodolfo, I can't thank you enough for hopping on with me today, for your work at bitcointreasuries.org. I encourage anyone who hasn't checked it out to do so. And, I'm sure you're going to keep building it out, at least until all companies in the world convert to Bitcoin treasuries. Is there anything else you wanted to share, though, with our audience about bitcointreasuries.org, this larger trend, or anything we've discussed before I let you go?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think people should pay attention, because the number that matters there is that 3.74%, right? The little guy still has a chance to front run, Berkshire Hathaway, right? Imagine the monumental chance you have in your life, right? Like this doesn't come about often, right? I'm just, you could even DCA at $10 a week or whatever, and you can be buying before they do. So I think it's not an opportunity that people should waste. It's like it's criminal not to have Bitcoin exposure at this moment.
Great. Well, very well put, Rodolfo. Thank you again so much. Have a great rest of your day, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. You have a nice day too.
All right.